Thank you, Dave. A good win for our guys, obviously. Hard fought battle that went through all 4 quarters, and just one that we really needed. We needed to be in those situations that felt a little bit of pressure and felt like, the other team was very capable and could battle with us, and they were willing to lay it on the line. Their quarterback was tough as can be. I thought the running back was phenomenal. Their defense played lights out, got a little bit aggressive at the end, and really made a play when they needed to on the interception. But in the end, when we had to stop them and we needed to convert, we were able to do that, and I think that's a sign of a really good team. This is a game that we needed ultimately. We needed to play a tough one like this, and it was important that we came away with that win like we did. Obviously, there was a lot that went into it on the 75 game of for them, and I think our guys did a good job of respecting that and handling that maturely and doing the right things out there and playing the game the proper way, as did they. I thought their fans, the people in the town, I think it all just felt a little different and meant a little more, on that game day. And I thought everybody, respected the game the way it should be respected. And then there was a lot in there. 20 days, one game in 20 days. That weird, Tuesday night game in the middle of it. There was a lot to overcome in this game, and I thought our guys did that. They could have found excuses and reached for those and used them if they wanted to, and they didn't do any of that. They just came back and just kept battling and never doubted it. And then, the 2 guys you'll talk to here in a little bit had crucial plays and crucial moments when we needed it. So we had moments to close that game out. We just didn't do it. And ultimately, earlier in the game and when we needed to the most, we found a way. So really proud of the effort and excited to get to work this week.
When we were talking to Trent on Saturday, if you look at his stats, it's career high numbers, but one of the first things he said was that he is not happy at all with his performance and what he did out on the field. How much do you notice that from your guys, where they're maybe searching for perfection and trying to get there, even if that isn't necessarily an attainable goal to play a perfect game?
Yeah, well, aim high, right, and miss is a lot better than aiming low and making it, right? So I think that is what they ultimately want to do is set their sights on the best that they possibly can be. And, Trent will be the first to tell you that career high in tackles, all the things that come with it, there's, 7, 8, maybe 9 more he could have had, and probably should have had. So, we're always looking to find ways to get better, regardless of what's going on around us or what's going on throughout the course of the game. I spoke, I think, extensively now about their ability to get better as the game goes on. And I think this past game was a, testament to that as well, to get the stops when we needed to, when we weren't able to do it earlier in the game. It's not only Trent, it's the rest of the team. They want to be as great as they possibly can be.
And you mentioned that interception in your opening statement, kind of switching to the other Trent on offense. Trent's hit to kind of bring down the guy. What does it say about a freshman that is able to kind of make that play and see it kind of develop as quickly as he did? Yeah,
well, he's just a fierce competitor. Obviously played some really good high school football in Texas, and, just comes here every day. From the moment he showed up on campus, he was, the way he lifted weights and the intentionality and intensity at which he did it, to the way he practiced and ran, then to the way we got into preseason camp. To think you're going to put a freshman out there and he's going to play meaningful snaps and meaningful moments is rare, but he was able to do that, and it just speaks volumes of who he is as a player and his preparation and intentionality going into it. So it wasn't really a surprise to any of us. I think that he is that type of player, and I think when there's a moment to put pads on someone, he'd be the first to volunteer to do that.
What did you see from your rush defense, especially in the third quarter, and how would you kind of like to see them respond this Saturday?
Yeah, so to me, there was just a lot of run-based stuff happening out there. There was a lot of run scheme that showed up in there. We have to be better, but when you're playing that type of offense that has so much misdirection, the quarterback run and the wrong way run, and the bite action and the all the bash action, all the stuff that comes with it, there's a lot in there that ultimately. You got to be really gap sound. And in your ability to be gap sound, I think it puts you in a spot that may slow you down just a little bit to the pass. And I think that's just a product of playing that type of game that we just played.
And I know we've asked you a lot about the second half these last few weeks, but just I'm sure you probably can't nail it down to one thing, but what is it about your team that allows you guys to play just so well when it matters the most?
Well, I just think it's the belief that they have in each other. And then not only that, I think the way we practice, the way we lift, the way we compete over the winter, there's just competition that is threaded throughout this entire program. So to me, we talk a lot about it. I pay attention to no virtue that hasn't been tested in fire, right? So that's why when we go to these compete periods and we go to our situational football, when we go good on good, those things matter more than just about anything else that we do in this entire program. And I think for them to take those seriously on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then all preseason long, all spring long, leads you to those moments where they have the confidence, right? The confidence comes from previous successes and also by having an idea of what is about to happen and knowing that you've executed it before, but also executed it in high pressure situations, whether that be practice or a game. That comes down to your intentionality. Can I make Tuesday and Wednesday feel like Saturday is what each of them have to be able to do when we're out there on the field. And I think that's what they do a really good job of. When we put them into situations, they bring the right mindset, they compete as hard as possible. And then when you get to the game, they've been there before. It's not the first time they've been there. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
Do you have an update on Big Joe and Io
Fine,
for this?
perfectly fine, yeah. Joe's great. He will be back. He was back yesterday, and he's ready to go.
And then Io?
We're still talking through it with Io. Yeah, but he's close. It's just a matter of how we want to play this out down the road here.
Looking ahead to App State this week, what do you kind of notice out of them?
Man, they're good. I mean, they lost their last 3 games by 1 score, right? So that's, I think, pretty telling of who they are. They've come back in the second half and battled a lot. I think, the QB they're putting in there right now does a really, really nice job. He is confident in there. He is comfortable in the pocket, and his ability to throw the ball downfield and progress it downfield it's effortless. When you watch him throw, it's just easy for him. There's a lot of big plays that happen in there. There's a lot of vertical passing game. There's a lot of things where he pushes the ball downfield. He's got 2 really good tall outside receivers on the outside, and then number 15 just been going off lately. The Barnes kid is really, really good. Targeted 20 times, I think, last week, 160 yards receiving, returned a punt for a touchdown already this year. Does a phenomenal job. Defensively, their defensive line's very good. They get after the quarterback. I don't know if they lead the league in sacks, but it's probably close. They are disruptive, as they can, as can be. And then they're just, the whole entire secondary is littered with FBS guys, our Power 4 guys that came back down and are playing at a really high level. Special teams is also a huge challenge. They're really good. They do a great job. I think their coordinator came from Texas previously, and he is elite at what he does. So there's no weak spots in this thing. And again, I think the 1-score games kind of speak about that. Now, they turned it over a little bit here and there, but they haven't done that too much lately. So I think that's where we got to get back to that. If the opportunity presents itself making a play, we got to get pressure on this quarterback. We got to make sure that we're getting the ball out of our hands quickly, and then our special teams, has just got to be elite this week. So there's a lot in here.
You mentioned their 3-game losing streak and the turnovers. Is that kind of, you think, been the common denominator for them in the last 3 games? If you
I think that,
tape?
and I think the other teams get ahead a little bit, but they're willing to fight back and they're capable of fighting back, and that's what you see them be able to do. So to me, they just never give up either. They're a team that will never quit, and I think that speaks volumes of who they are. And obviously we know our record here against them. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. You all probably do, but it's not very good, right? And I think the last 2 years in particular, they've won in moments where it really spoiled a lot of things for the program. So we got to make sure that we're 100% prepared and ready to go.
This is going to be you guys' first home game in
close
to a month.
Yeah.
How excited are you guys to finally run out of this locker room for a change?
Very, very excited. And just go back to it. A Tuesday night in Texas is like where it felt like Dave, when we sat down and talked, it felt like a month ago when we were sitting down and talking before that game. And I think that, to me, then you're on the road again. But this is also an interesting one. You're going 4.5 hours on a bus, not the easiest path that you took. Their kids were falling out of their seats as we're making turns going over the mountain. So there's all of that stuff that comes with it. And then you get there and that game means a whole lot to them, right? That game means a whole lot to really the football world, the 75th game. And I think that is one of those things that's another obstacle. But, our guys just continue to not treat that as, adversity. They treat it as opportunity. And I love the way that they do that. But to be home in front of our fans, in front of the best student body in the entire nation, with the largest band in the, entire country, like the sold out again, like, and the impact that they make, the impact that they have on those games is just phenomenal. So it is a big, big deal to be back home right now.
When you look over at the last couple of games, you had Landon have a breakout performance, and then teams had to focus on him more, and Nick had the breakout performance, and teams have to focus on him, and then now Jaylon has that breakout game. How much are you noticing the benefit of having that deep of a wide receiver room.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a benefit. Anytime you don't just have one, it's a benefit. And then again, just I think the ability for Coach Kennedy, to scheme up getting these guys available, understand what we're trying to attack, and then for the quarterbacks and receivers to be on the same page and being able to handle that is really the biggest piece of it. So, there's other guys too that are capable in there that I'm sure they will show up as the year continues to go on, and they're all, again, doing a great job when they don't have the ball in their hands. And I think when you do that right, eventually the ball will find you. If you're just looking for the ball and not worried about anything else, and don't run the right routes when you don't feel like you're the star of the show, when you don't block for other people, it's hard for the ball to find you, right? I think when you do everything else right, you know that you're putting yourself in position that eventually the tide's gonna turn in your favor. And then I just got to make those plays when they show up. And I think that's what they're all doing. But it is good to have, a deep room that all can contribute.
Talk about AG a little bit and his progression throughout this year, not knowing a ton of what he was going to bring to you. You had an idea, hopefully, but he had played one snap in his career. Talk about his progression this year and what you've seen out of Aiden.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a great job. He's a fierce competitor. I haven't seen him have a bad day yet. He comes in here and he's happy and he wants to get to work and he's just ready to compete all the time. He's not a guy that pulls anybody else down. He's constantly uplifting other people, and that's not even talking about anything yet on the field. You get on the field and he's obviously a very capable football player. His size speaks for itself, but then just his toughness and his willingness to play hard and his extension in the pass game and the run game, and then he just doesn't quit. That last sack, he's double teamed at one point, fights through it. He's almost crawling on the ground trying to get to the quarterback. The efforts on every play are multiple for him. He's not a one step, make a move and done. He's going to have second, third, fourth, fifth efforts on every single play, and I think that's what is making him who he is today. And I think, again, with the little successes comes more confidence. With more confidence comes more success, and you start that spiral. And next thing you know, you're spinning at a pretty high rate of speed with a ton of belief in yourself. And I think that's where he's at right now.
You mentioned the programs last couple to App in some challenging games. Do you bring that up to the guys about how it's kind of turned into a little rivalry?
We didn't really bring it up yet. On Sunday, we're more focused on ourselves and what we need to correct, but that will be a conversation, for a later day for sure.
When you're in the recruiting process and going after guys like we're going to talk to in Jay and AG, how do you kind of dive into their mental makeup of how they can handle it in the fourth quarter in a game like we just saw, or not waver when things get challenging? Are you able to do that?
Yeah, but you're not able to do that just because you're asking questions about the fourth quarter or their football. It really comes from who they are as people, and you'll watch them both get up here and get a feel for if you feel like they're willing to give everything they got. Right? Do they love football? Honestly, do they love life? Are they energy guys, and are they bringing it every day, and are they going to make those around them better? And do they have patterns of previous success? And if not, is it the right attitude that's coming along with it that is going to fit in this program? There's a lot of guys out there that aren't on this team, right, that could have been and probably wanted to be, but it just didn't fit. It just didn't fit for the reasons we felt were part of our culture and part of the dynamic here that we're trying to build. So ultimately, we got the right ones when it came down to it, and I think that you can identify, and you find out very quickly when you look someone in the eye and talk to them in this process what they're all about. Not everybody's motivated by the same things in this process, and we need to find the guys that are motivated for the love of football, playing in front of sold-out crowds in a community that cares a lot about it and a chance to do special things. That's what we were looking for. Other people were looking for other things, but we got the ones that were looking for that, and that's what we have to offer.
I know you've been asked a lot of questions like this over the last few weeks, but just especially now that you guys are ranked and national media coverage has picked up so much, just how do you kind of go about keeping the team even keeled with possible playoff spot at hand? Yeah, so I think the way you do that is I used to believe you don't talk about it at all, and then to me, they're certainly talking about it, especially nowadays in the world of social media and how many different people are covering it. And I mean, I'm on a TV show the other day. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about we're trying to stay focused and win games and not worry about anything else. But these are things that are important for the community, and they're important for the guys that got us here to this point in time. So it'd be, I think, foolish and a little bit short-sighted and unfair to just brush it under the rug and say it doesn't exist, because it does exist, and we all know that. And if we're not talking about it as a team at some point, then who are they talking about it with, and what's the message being delivered there?
there. But it all continues to go back to the same point of why are you in this conversation and why did you get to this point in time? All right. And then you look back and go, well, because of the things we mentioned earlier in this conversation about, just how hard we're going to practice, the football that we're going to play, we're going to be able to, succeed in pressure situations. We're going to test it and fire all. That's what got us here. So to all of a sudden change everything because we have some number next to our name would be very ridiculous. And I think that our guys right now understand that, and they're locked in on dancing with the one that brought them. Why are we here? Well, good. Let's continue to do that, but let's do it at an even bigger level or even a more elite level. And every week we talk about from week 1 to 2, 2 to 3, are we getting better? Are we getting better? Are we getting better each week? And that's ultimately all that we could realistically control. I think it's awesome for this community that gives so much to this team. I think it's awesome for the school. I think it's, great for so many different, entities that exist and support this organization, but we're still the ones doing the work, right? And the work still has to be done. And the work doesn't just, and numbers next to your name doesn't make people bow down when they walk in here. In fact, it increases the bullseye. And we have to understand that and embrace that bullseye and understand our job is to still go out there and hunt, not be the hunted, but to hunt. And that is exactly what we will continue to do.
Wanted to ask you one more too about working for an AD who on Friday decided to get in the Diesel Duke and ride over with the equipment to Marshall. What's it like just seeing Matt Roan do something like that?
I didn't know that. I didn't know he did that. So he rode over there the whole ride, or did he stage a photo at the last 5 minutes?
He left Friday morning from here.
He left? Wow. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. No, it's awesome. I think back to the swim and dive championship where, him and Mal jump into the pool with their full gear on after being at an alumni event. That's the stuff to me that, he's all in, right? And that's pretty cool to see a athletic director, leading this charge. And again, he was a football player back in the day and he was a college athlete. So it's not like he doesn't understand what it takes, to lead these men and women. And he does it at a really elite level. And I think it's pretty special to watch.